Medieval India, chapter number 13, page number 168. Towards integration. We have seen how, during the 15th century, a number of rulers in different parts of the country had tried to promote greater understanding between Hindus and the Muslims by having secular and religious literature in Sanskrit translated into Persian, by giving patronage to local languages and literature, by adopting a more liberal policy of religious toleration, and in some cases by giving important jobs, including service at the court and in the army, to the Hindus. We have also seen how a remarkable series of popular saints such as Chaitanya, Kabir, Nanak in different parts of the country emphasized the essential unity of Islam and Hinduism and laid stress on a religion based on love and devotion rather than one based on rituals or a literal interpretation of revealed books. They thus created the atmosphere in which liberal sentiments and views could grow and religious narrowness began to looked down upon. This was the atmosphere in which Akbar was born and reared. One of the first actions which Akbar took after he had taken power in his own hands was to abolish the poll tax or jizya, which the non Muslims were required to pay in a Muslim state. Although it was not a heavy tax, it was disliked because it made a distinction between subject and subject. At the same time, Akbar abolished the pilgrim tax on bathing at holy places such as Prayag, Banaras, etc. He also abolished the practice of forcibly converting prisoners of war to Islam. This laid an essential foundation of an empire based on equal rights to all citizens, irrespective of their religious beliefs. The liberal principles of the empire were strengthened by bringing able Hindus into the nobility. While most of these Rajput Rajas, many of whom entered into matrimonial relations with Akbar, and whom with he had established a personal relationship, mansabs, were given to others also on the basis of their competence. People among the latter, the ablest and the most well known were Todarmal, an expert in revenue affairs, who rose to the post of Diwan, and Birbal, who was the favorite of the emperor. Akbar's attitude towards his Hindu subjects is closely linked with his views of how a sovereign should behave towards his subjects. These views, which have been carefully explained by Akbar's biographer Abul Fazl, were an amalgam of Timurid, Persian, and Indian ideas of sovereignty. According to Abul Fazl, the office of a true ruler was a very responsible one, which depended on divine illumination for a izadi. Hence, no one could stand between God and true ruler. A true ruler was distinguished by a paternal love towards his subjects without distinction of sect or creed, a large heart so that the wishes of the great and the small are attended to, prayer and devotion, and a daily increasing trust in God, who is considered the real ruler. It was also the duty of the ruler to maintain equilibrium in the society by not allowing people of one rank or profession to interfere in the duties and obligations of another. Above all, he was not to allow the dust of sectarian strife to rise. All these together constituted what has been called the policy of Sulk Kul, or peace to all. From the beginning, Akbar was deeply interested in religions and philosophy. At the outset, Akbar was Orthodox Muslim. He paid great deference to the leading Qazi of the state, Abdul Nabi Khan, who held the post of Sadr-u-Sadr, and on one occasion even carried his slippers for him. But by the time Akbar reached adulthood, mysticism, which was being preached in the length and breadth of the country, began to influence him. We are told that he spent whole nights in thoughts of God, continually pronounced his name, and for a feeling of thankfulness for his success. He would sit many a morning alone in prayer and contemplation on a large flat stone of an old building near his place in Agra. Gradually, he turned away from the path of narrow orthodoxy. He had already abolished the jizya and pilgrim tax, as we have seen. He gathered at the court a band of talented people with liberal ideas. The most noted among these were Abul Fazl and his brother Faizi, who, along with their father, who was noted scholar, had been persecuted by the mullahs for having sympathy with Madhwahi ideas. Madhvi ideas. Another was a Brahmin, Mahesh Das, who was given the title of Raja Birbal and was a constant companion of Akbar. In 1575, Akbar built a hall called Ibadat Khana or the Hall of Prayer at his new capital Fatehpur Sikri. To this, he called selected theologians, mystics, and those of his courtiers and nobles who were known in their scholarship and intellectual attainments. Akbar discussed religious and spiritual topics with them. He frequently said, "My sole object, O wise mullah, is to ascertain truth, to find out and disclose the principles of genuine religion." The proceedings at first were confined to the Muslims. They were hardly orderly. The mullahs wrangled, shouted, and abused each other even in the presence of the emperor. The behavior of the mullahs, their pride and conceit in their learning disgusted Akbar and further alienated him from the mullahs. At this stage, Akbar opened the Ibadat Khana up to people of all religions: Christian, Zoroastrians, Hindus, Jains, and even atheists. This broadened the discussions, and debates began even on issues which all Muslims were agreed, such as whether the Quran was the last revealed book and Muhammad its prophet, resurrection, nature of God, etc. This horrified the theologians, and all kinds of rumors began to circulate about Akbar's desire to forsake Islam. As a modern writer says, the patience and open mindedness of Akbar was constructed in a variety of ways by persons of different faiths. Instead of bringing credit, the Ibadat Khana brought growing discredit. Thank you everyone for tuning in. In the next part, we'll start with the next paragraph on page number 169. All the best for exams. Do share and subscribe the channel and keep supporting us. Thank you everyone.